Welcome to Story Medicine. I'm Joe Summerfield. For over 20 years, I've been working to better understand and support people in navigating this human experience. And I've come to believe that stories are encoded with the collective wisdom of all who have come before us. That they bring us into connection with the collective unconscious and contain treasure waiting to be decoded. This podcast explores traditional tales through that lens. Each episode offers a story told in full, an exploration of the medicine it may carry for us, and questions to help you integrate that medicine. Today's story comes from Norse mythology, preserved in the Prose Edda, written by Snorri Sturluson in the 13th century, though the tales themselves are far older. It's called Baldur and the Mistletoe. This is our first journey into the Norse tradition, a mythology quite different from the Greek and Roman tales that many of us know. These gods can be killed. They age, requiring the goddess Idun's golden apples to keep from growing old. And they know that Ragnarok, the apocalyptic final battle, the end of this world, is prophesied and inevitable. Yet they face this with courage rather than despair. Let's begin. Part 1. The Story. In the realm of the gods, there lived Baldur, son of Odin and Frigg. Of all of Aesir, Baldur was the most beloved. His face shone with light, his wisdom was gentle, and his presence brought joy to all who encountered him. When Baldur spoke, his words carried such fairness and kindness that none could help but love him. But Baldur began to have dark dreams. Night after night, ominous visions came to him, dreams of his own death. He would wake troubled, the shadow of these dreams lingering over him. As you might imagine, this was disturbing enough to him, but the real trouble is that in the world of the Norse gods, dreams were not merely dreams, they were omens. They were truth showing itself before it arrived. Baldur shared his dreams with the other gods, and a deep sense of unease settled over Asgard. Frigg, his mother, felt the weight of what was coming, and she could not bear the thought of losing her beloved son. So Frigg made a decision. She would travel through all of creation and make everything swear an oath that nothing would harm Baldur. She journeyed to every corner of the world. She spoke to fire and water, to iron and all metals, to every kind of stone. She spoke to the earth itself, to the trees, to the plants, to every sickness and every poison. She spoke to beasts and birds, to serpents and creatures of the deep. And each thing she asked to give its oath, we will not harm Baldur. When Frigg returned to Asgard, the gods rejoiced. Baldur was protected. Nothing in all of creation could harm him. And so the gods began to play a game. They would gather in the great hall, and one by one they would test Baldur's invulnerability. They threw stones at him, and the stones bounced away harmlessly. They shot arrows, and the arrows would not pierce him. They struck him with swords, and the blades would not cut. Baldur stood in the centre, laughing as weapons and objects bounced off him like rain off of stone. It became a celebration, a joyful honouring of his protection. But Loki, the trickster, the shapeshifter, the one who could not leave well enough alone, Loki watched with different eyes. And he disguised himself as an old woman and went to find Frigg. What a marvellous game the gods play, he said to her. Nothing truly can harm Baldur? Nothing, said Frigg. I have taken oaths from all things in creation. All things? The old woman asked. Every single thing in creation? Frigg paused. Well, there was one small plant that I passed. It grows west of Valhalla. Mistletoe, it's called. But it seemed so young, so small, so weak. Too insignificant to do any harm, so I didn't bother to ask that for an oath. Loki left at once. He went west of Valhalla and found the mistletoe growing, a small green plant with white berries clinging to the branches of a tree. He cut it carefully, then fashioned it into a dart, and then returned to where the gods were playing their game. There stood Hoder, Baldur's brother. The two were twins and sons of the same father and mother, Odin and Frigg. But where Baldur shone with light, Hoder was associated with darkness and winter, and Hoder was blind. He stood apart from the others, unable to participate in the game. Everybody else was throwing things and laughing and celebrating Baldur's invulnerability, but of course Hoder could not see where to throw. Loki approached him. "Why don't you honor your brother as the one you love?" he asked. "I can't see where he stands," Hoder replied, "and I have nothing to throw." "Here," said Loki, placing the mistletoe in Hoder's hand. "I will guide your arm. Throw this." And so Hoder, guided by Loki, threw the dart of mistletoe. It flew straight and true, and it pierced Baldur's heart. The most beloved of all of the gods fell dead, and the laughter died with him. The gods stood in shock. The silence was absolute. The light had gone out. They carried Baldur's body to the sea and built a funeral pyre on his ship. They placed him on it with his weapons and his treasures. Upon seeing this, Nanna, his wife, died immediately from grief and was placed beside him. They set the ship ablaze and pushed it out to sea, and the flames rose high on the horizon as the gods watched their beloved Baldur drift away. But the gods could not accept this. Surely there must be some way to bring him back. Hermodr, another of Odin's sons, volunteered to ride to Hel, the underworld, the realm of the dead, to ask if Baldur might be released. He rode Odin's 8-legged horse, Sleipnir, for 9 nights through valleys so deep and dark that he couldn't see anything. And finally he came to the bridge that led to Hel's realm. He found Baldur sitting in the Palace of Honor in Hel's hall. He asked Hel, who ruled that dark realm, if Baldur might return to the living. Hel considered this. "If all things in the world, both living and dead, will weep for Baldur," she said, "then he may return. But if even one thing refuses to weep, he will stay with me." The gods sent messengers throughout the world, and everything wept for Baldur. People wept, animals wept, the earth wept, the stones wept, the trees wept, even the metals wept. Everything mourned the death of the beloved god. But in a cave, the messengers found a giantess named Thok. "Weep for Baldur," they said. And Thok, who was in fact Loki in disguise, replied, "Thok will weep dry tears for Baldur's funeral. Let Hel hold what she has." And so, because of that one refusal, Baldur remained in the realm of the dead. He sits there still in Hel's hall, and will remain there until Ragnarok, until the final battle comes, until the world itself ends and the gods fall, and everything burns and the earth sinks into the sea. Only after that, only after everything is destroyed and a new earth rises from the waters, will Baldur return. He and Hoder will emerge together in the new world, reconciled, side by side, ruling as one, the light and the dark. Part 2. The Medicine. Let's explore the medicine that this story may be offering us. This is a tragedy. There is no rescue here, no happy ending where Baldur returns in time to prevent further catastrophe. He stays dead. The light stays extinguished. And this is one of the first unmistakable signs that Ragnarok is approaching. Before we explore deeper, if you know anybody who might appreciate this story or this story's medicine right now, then please share this episode with them. And if you're enjoying the podcast and would like to help others find it too, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Thank you. For context, let's begin with something that makes Norse mythology distinctive. These are not the immortal gods of Mount Olympus. The Norse gods can be killed. They age. They require the goddess Idun's golden apples to stay young. And most significantly, they know that Ragnarok is prophesied. The apocalyptic end of this world is inevitable. Everything will burn, the earth will sink into the sea, and nearly all of the gods will fall in battle. Then a new earth will rise from the waters, purified and transformed. Just a few gods will survive and return to rule this world. This is not a cycle, this is an apocalypse followed by a new creation. The gods know that this is coming, yet they continue to live with courage and honor anyway. Baldur's death was prophesied. His dreams showed him the truth, and this is fate speaking. And Frigg's response is understandable. What mother wouldn't try to protect her child? So she travels through all of creation and secures oaths from every single thing. This is thoroughness on a scale that's almost unimaginable, and it speaks to the overwhelming strength of this impulse. The impulse to protect our loved ones, to protect ourselves from harm, and to attempt to shape the world to our will in order to do so. But she dismisses the mistletoe. It's too young, too small, too weak. And here perhaps is the first layer of medicine. When we attempt to assure ourselves of safety through control of the external, the environment, or our circumstances, our relationships, not only is it ineffectual, but it actually gives greater power to those few things that cannot be controlled, which will always exist. The 1% that we overlook, or that falls outside of our influence, is imbued with more power as a consequence of control over the 99%. The exception comes to matter absolutely. After all, if she hadn't have secured those oaths, mistletoe would have remained what it was, a harmless plant. But once everything else is bound, once total invulnerability is established, that one overlooked thing becomes the only vulnerability. And so we come into intimate relationship with it. We are even somehow identified by that one thing that we're trying to avoid. We will come to look at Loki later, but from his perspective, of course Loki, the god of chaos, knows this. And he is part of the natural order. Chaos is part of the natural order, necessarily. And this is every bit as relevant to our lives as it is to the story. So, Baldur has almost total invulnerability, and the gods celebrate by testing his protection. They are literally attacking Baldur to honor him, throwing weapons and shooting arrows and striking with swords. Perhaps this speaks to the arrogance or the complacency that can manifest through the illusion of safety or control. The protection that was meant to keep Baldur safe becomes the very reason that he's standing there as a target. Perhaps being completely protected from harm makes us forget that we live in a world where danger and death exists. It creates a false sense that we've transcended the natural order, but it's a hollow structure. Frigg is trying to override fate. Baldur's death was prophesied in his dreams. Fate had already spoken, but Frigg attempts to control fate through controlling all variables. And this attempt to manufacture safety against what's meant to be creates the very conditions for fate and her deepest fear to manifest. The overlooked exception, the false invulnerability, the celebratory game, all of these emerge from trying to control what cannot be controlled, and they bring about the fate that they are trying to avoid. Now we come to extremely powerful and important medicine that I didn't see at first, but struck me deeply when I did see it. Hodor is Baldur's twin brother. They are the twin sons of Odin, king of Isar, and Frigg, queen of Asgard. Baldur is associated with light and warmth, and Hodor is associated with darkness and winter. So they are opposites. They are two aspects of one whole, light and dark. Hodor's name means warrior or slayer. So he embodies the capacity for destruction. And he is blind, and this is how he came to kill his twin brother, the light. This is absolutely crucial. We all carry within us destructive capacity, dark energy, the warrior, the slayer, and so the potential to do good with that, or to cause irrevocable harm. This aspect of ourselves is immensely powerful. It is part of our being whole. but there is great danger if it exists in our shadow. I think this is the significance of Hodor's blindness. His destructive potency is in the shadow. It's unintegrated. It's not conscious. And so he's kept separate from the game, standing apart while everybody else participates. And this is where Loki comes in. The trickster's gift is in finding the weakness in any system. As we've discussed, Frigg set up a system, an order, or a game for chaos to test, as it always will. And he knew exactly where to look. He knew that Hodor's potency was at least somewhat unintegrated. The warrior blind to his own power, who could be guided to destroy what he loved the most, the other part of him, the light. Here's the medicine for all of us. When our destructive capacity remains in the shadow, when we don't consciously know and integrate our capacity for harm, it doesn't disappear. It acts unconsciously, out of control, and unconscious destructive energy becomes the instrument that destroys what we treasure the most. The point is not that we shouldn't have destructive capacity. The point is that we certainly do have it, all of us, and we must know we have it. We must understand it deeply, how it looks, how it feels, when it manifests, what it manifests against. And then we must learn to wield it consciously, and so to gain the ability to choose to keep it sheathed. Hodor's blindness as a warrior says to me that he hasn't fully integrated his potency, and so he becomes the perfect instrument, unconscious, manipulable, and deadly. In a sense, it's not Loki that's manipulating him. He and those around him are all at the mercy of an unintegrated archetype. And perhaps, and this is conjecture but worth considering, Frigg's pathological protection of Baldur, her cocooning of the light, may have contributed to Hodor remaining unintegrated. When we protect one aspect obsessively, we may inadvertently create the conditions where the opposite remains in the shadow. So, after Baldur's death, the gods attempt once more to override the natural order. They ask Hel if Baldur can return, so she sets a condition. All things must weep for him. And everything does weep. People, animals, earth, stones, trees, metals, everything mourns. Except one. Loki, disguised as Thok, refuses. Hel's condition was likely impossible from the start. She knew Loki well enough to know that he wouldn't participate. So she is showing that the natural order cannot be overwritten just because everybody wants it to be. She refuses to participate in the effort to bend the order to our will. And Hel was right about Loki. For the second time, Loki finds the weakness in the plan. The trickster is, in this sense, serving the natural order, ensuring that what is meant to be actually happens. And so Baldur stays dead, not for a time, not until he learns something. He remains in Hel until Ragnarok, until this world genuinely ends. Only after the apocalypse, only after everything burns and the earth sinks and then rises again new, only then do Baldur and Hodor return together. The twins, the two parts of wholeness, light and dark, reconciled, ruling the world side by side. This is medicine about transformations that cannot happen within existing order, or one that we apply through will. Some reconciliations can only happen after a total coming apart. Sometimes surrender to total death is necessary for rebirth to follow. The gods had to let go of their wishes and live with Baldur's absence, knowing that he would not return in this lifetime or to this world, and knowing that Ragnarok was one significant step closer. They had to carry that knowing whilst still acting with honour, whilst still facing the approaching darkness of Ragnarok with courage. This is medicine for living with irreversible loss, whilst still choosing to live fully. This story doesn't offer comfort. It offers something much harder and much more true. The recognition that we cannot override fate. That our protective control creates its own dangers. That our unintegrated shadow will act unconsciously. And that some reconciliations require the death of the world as we know it. Part 3. Integration Practices. The medicine doesn't come from understanding these patterns intellectually. It comes from the practices, allowing the transformation to happen in your body, in your life, in your honest acknowledgement of where you are. Here are 3 practices to help you integrate this story's medicine. First practice, at the mercy of your unintegrated warrior. Hodur's name means warrior or slayer. He embodies destructive capacity, but his destructive capacity is in shadow, unintegrated, and so he becomes the perfect unconscious instrument. This practice asks you to feel into and recognize your own capacity for harm, not to act on it, but to know it exists intimately. Take 20 minutes this week in a private space. Begin by asking, what does my warrior, what does my destructive force actually feel like in my body? Not what it means or what it represents, but what does it feel like when it comes alive? How does it feel to be possessed by this destructive force? Close your eyes and bring to mind a moment when you felt this energy. Perhaps a moment of rage. Perhaps a moment when you wanted to lash out or destroy or cut someone down. Feel where it lives in your body. Is it heat? Is it tension? A coiling? A sharpness? Get to know its texture, its temperature, its particular signature. And then ask yourself, as the next step, when does this force come alive? What triggers it? What circumstances? What threats? What frustrations call it forth? Be specific and write down what you discover. The third step and the harder question. Who else is at the mercy of this unintegrated archetype? When this warrior acts unconsciously, when I am possessed by this force, when it operates without my full awareness, who gets hurt? Not just have I harmed people, but who specifically has been affected by your unconscious destructive capacity? Your partner, your children, your friends, your colleagues? The medicine here isn't in becoming harmless. The medicine is in knowing that your sword exists, feeling it, recognizing when it comes alive, understanding who's affected when it acts unconsciously, and then choosing consciously when to wield it or keep it sheathed. Second practice, intimate with what you fear. Frigg's attempt to control fate through binding all things to her will created an intimate relationship with the very thing that she was trying to avoid. This practice asks you to look honestly at how you've become intimately defined by that which you're trying to avoid through control. Choose one area of your life where you're attempting to assure safety through controlling the external. Perhaps you're trying to control against relationship conflict, perhaps against financial insecurity, perhaps against your children experiencing pain or failure, perhaps against your own vulnerability or weakness, perhaps against rejection, perhaps against interdependence. Write down what you're most afraid of, be specific and be honest. And then write down all of the ways that you're trying to control against this fear, all of your protective measures, all of your careful management, all of the ways that you're attempting to bind the world to your will, your strategies. Now ask, in what ways have I become intimately defined by what I'm trying to avoid? How has the thing that I fear the most become central to my identity, my choices, my relationships, the way that I see myself? Have I become the anxious controller? Have I become the rigid protector? The one always defending against the very thing that I've given all my power to? and ask, has my attempt at safety created complacency or arrogance? Am I living in a false sense that I've transcended the natural order, that I'm somehow exempt from the very dangers and uncertainties that define being human? This isn't about abandoning care or becoming reckless. It's about recognizing that we will always come into intimate relationship on a deep level with that which we try to avoid or control away. The exception will always exist, and our protective control often creates the very conditions that we fear, essentially giving that thing absolute power over us. Third practice, surrendering your wishes. Baldur doesn't come back, not in this world. The gods had to let go of their wishes and live with his absence until Ragnarok, until everything ended and the new world began. This practice is for those carrying a loss or an absence that will not be restored in this lifetime. Not a loss that you're still processing, but one that you know is permanent, and yet you're still holding wishes about it. Take a clean sheet of paper and write at the top, what I am still trying to will into being. And then write down every wish that you're still holding about this permanent loss. Every hope that things could be different. Every fantasy of restoration or return or reconciliation. Every if only or maybe still. Be completely honest and write them all down. These might include wishes that a person would come back, or that you could redo the past, or that somebody in your past might have done things differently in some way, or that reconciliation is still possible, or that things could return to how they once were, or that you'll wake up and it won't be true. When you've written them all, read through the list slowly. Feel the weight of still carrying these wishes. Feel how much energy goes into holding them, trying to will them into reality, waiting for them, despite knowing they cannot be. Then, and this is the practice of surrender, choose a way to release them. You might burn the paper. You might write about your wishes. You might write about an individual wish and burn the paper and watch the wishes turn to ash. You might bury it. You might tear it into pieces and scatter it into the wind. You might dance or shake or scream or cry it out. Choose whatever feels right to you, but make it a physical act of letting go. As you do this, say aloud or silently, I let go of my wishes. I cannot will this into being. I surrender to what is. This doesn't mean that you stop grieving or that the loss doesn't matter. It certainly does. It means acceptance. It means that you stop trying to override the natural order through the force of your wanting. You stop expending energy trying to manifest something that cannot be. The gods had to let go of their wishes before they could face Ragnarok with courage. Can you? The wisdom in these old stories waits patiently, and I hope that this one's medicine found you where you need it. Thank you for listening to Story Medicine. I am Joe Summerfield. Until next time.